Can we all just take a collective breath for a second? If you're feeling like the political world is a high-stakes, never-ending family argument where everyone is screaming and no one is listening, you are not alone. It is exhausting. And just when you think the dust might be settling from one election, someone decides to light a brand new fire. This weekend, that someone was Bill Maher. On his HBO show Real Time this past Friday, Bill, acting as the cranky, unfiltered uncle of late-night commentary, didn't just poke the bear. He marched right up to the Democratic Socialist bear, kicked it in the shins, and then spent 10 minutes telling the Democratic Party why they were insane for even knowing the bear, let alone inviting it to the party. The trigger for all this? The victory of Zoran Mamdani, the newly elected mayor of New York City, who is a proud, self-described democratic socialist. For a lot of people, this was a moment of hope, a sign that policies focused on working-class issues and affordability are gaining real traction. For Bill Maher, it was a five-alarm fire. He looked at that victory and basically saw the party handing the 2026 and 2028 elections to the GOP on a silver platter. Democrats must recognize that Zoran Mamdani is the future of the party, Maher said, before dropping the hammer. Unfortunately, it's the Republican Party. Ouch. He argued that Mamdani's victory speech and his platform will be used in every attack ad for the next 2 years. And let's be honest, we can all picture those ads, can't we? Grainy, black and white footage, scary music, the word socialism flashing in big, red, terrifying letters. Maher's fear is that the S word is political poison and that no amount of adding Democratic in front of it will make it taste better to voters in swing states. He even gave a backhanded compliment, saying Mamdani seems like a nice guy, which is the classic setup for the but. He urged the party, almost pleaded with them, not to get swept up in what he called socialism fever. This isn't just a random rant. This is the sound of the internal identity crisis of the Democratic Party being broadcast on live television. The battle for the party's soul, center versus socialist. For Maher, this isn't a new fight. He's been banging this drum for years. He quickly brought up Virginia Governor-elect Abigail Spanberger, a prominent centrist who warned Democrats before the 2024 presidential election that if the party didn't shift to the center, we will get torn apart. Well, she was right, but they didn't listen, Maher quipped. Typical, am I right, ladies? In that single moment, Maher framed the entire debate. In his eyes, there are two wings of the party, the Spanberger wing, which he sees as sane, pragmatic, and electable, and the socialist wing, which he sees as a radical, idealistic, unelectable fringe that's about to hijack the plane and fly it straight into a mountain. He's terrified that the party is listening to the wrong people, and his argument got even more pointed. Democratic socialism is like a dating profile, he said, dropping a metaphor that is pure Maher. Things look great until you meet up in the real world. It's a clever line, it's relatable. We've all seen the profile that promises a world-traveling, marathon-running, sensitive poet, only to meet up with a guy who lives in his mom's basement and thinks the gym is a person. Maher's real-world example, Senator Bernie Sanders. He pointed out that Bernie's big thing was always single-payer health care for the entire United States, a country of 340 million people. But, Maher countered, when liberal tie-dyed Vermont tried to do it for a population of 626,000, it collapsed. This is his Exhibit A, he's saying, see, it doesn't even work in the most liberal, smallest-scale test environment possible. It's a fantasy. Now, is that the whole story? Of course not. The article itself notes that single-payer systems are used successfully in Canada, the UK, Taiwan, Norway, and many other developed nations. The Vermont plan's collapse was incredibly complex, tied to massive tax hike proposals and political battles. But in Maher's world, it's simple. The dating profile was a lie. The real-world meetup was a disaster. They are not Democrats. This is where the friendly argument turns into a real family feud. Maher wasn't content to just call the ideas bad. He essentially tried to kick them out of the family entirely. Bernie, AOC, Mamdani are not Democrats, he stated flatly. They'll be the first to tell you that they're democratic socialists, and that's a very different thing. And I don't think people know that yet. This is the core of his freak-out. He believes the party is being co-opted by people who are not, in his mind, real Democrats. He did acknowledge the obvious. That we already have socialist programs that are wildly popular. Medicare, Social Security, and food stamps, he listed, calling them appropriate ways to soften the edges of capitalism. That, for him, is the line. Those programs are the moderate center. But the DSA, Democratic Socialists of America? The DSA are radicals about this concept, he insisted. And then he tied it all together with a warning that, for him, is the ultimate deal breaker. And radical economic policy is always ineluctably married to radical social policy. He didn't explicitly define radical social policy, but he didn't have to. He just wants a moderate party. He's tired. He said he's had enough of Trump's macho bull, but also enough of pie politics. It's widely assumed he meant PC politics. He's speaking for what he believes is the exhausted center. People who are tired of the extremes on both sides and just want things to be normal again. But, is Maher missing the point? Here's the thing. Maher laid out this whole case for why democratic socialism is a political apocalypse. He made his argument. He drew his line in the sand. And then, just as his monologue was settling, the real world threw a curveball. The article ends with a fascinating little fact. Just one day before Maher's show, 43-year-old Democratic Socialist Katie Wilson unseated the centrist Democrat incumbent for mayor in Seattle, Bruce Harrell. Let that sink in. This wasn't a socialist versus Republican race. This was a socialist versus centrist Democrat race, exactly the internal battle Maher is talking about. And the socialist won. What did she run on? Not abstract theories. She ran on a campaign based on affordability. She ran on the very real-world issues that are crushing people. Housing, groceries, the feeling that no matter how hard you work, you're falling behind. So, who's right? Is Bill Maher the clear-eyed prophet, the only one brave enough to say the emperor has no clothes and that the party is walking into a trap? Is he right that these radical ideas will scare off the moderate voters needed to win? Or is he the one who's stuck in the past? Is he so focused on the label socialism that he's completely missing the reason these candidates are winning? Maybe voters aren't scared of a word anymore. Maybe they're just scared they won't be able to pay their rent. The Democratic Party is at a crossroads. It's a battle between the pragmatic center that wants to play it safe and the radical left that believes safe is no longer enough. Maher has made his choice, but in Seattle and New York City, voters just made a very different one. What do you think? Is Maher right, or is this the future?